set the stage because this is absolutely astonishing here. DHS funding expired back on February 13th. Republicans sent bill after bill to the Senate floor to reopen the Department of Homeland Security, including TSA, the Coast Guard, FEMA, Secret Service. Every time, Democrats voted it down. Now, you would think, why on earth would they possibly do that? Well, because buried inside any DHS funding bill was money for ICE, right? Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And Democrats had decided that ICE was their new battleground. This was the new hill that they were prepared to die on. As far as Democrat constituents go, they expected their senators to avenge the death of Renee Good and Alex Pretty, the two ultra-woke anti-ICE activists who got shot and killed by federal immigration agents in Minneapolis when they were interfering with their law enforcement duties. The most rabid far-left Democrat activists demanded that their senators shut down the government, at least partially, in response. And so Senate Democrats, who are basically being held hostage by the radical left, willingly so, by the way, dug in their heels and refused to vote to fund any DHS bill that did not come with new restrictions on ICE, things like requiring agents to get judicial warrants before entering private homes and banning immigration officers from wearing masks during raids, even though they know their own constituents are doxing those agents, those officers, based on facial recognition. Now, this is absolutely crucial to understand in order to see the political trap that the Democrats inadvertently walked straight into. We have to remember that ICE already got funded. That was part of the genius of the one big beautiful bill, which Trump signed into law back on 4th of July. That bill automatically, that's key, it automatically gave ICE $75 billion in new budget authority, approximately 7x ICE's typical annual budget of $10 billion. And it's available through fiscal year 2029. That money was appropriated through the reconciliation process, meaning it sits completely outside the normal annual appropriation cycle and can't be touched by a government shutdown. So whether the DHS is shut down or not, ICE and CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, will still be able to pursue their immigration crackdown completely undisrupted. That's key. This is why the Democrats couldn't defund ICE. The one big beautiful bill had already locked in the money till 2029. A DHS shutdown, a continuing resolution, or even passing a bill excluding ICE funding made zero difference to ICE's operational capacity until 2029. And so this is why Democrats pivoted from defund ICE to demanding reform conditions, such as hamstringing them with unnecessary warrant requirements, mask bans, body cameras, all kinds of hampering accountability measures. Since they couldn't starve ICE of their money, their only play was to attach behavioral guardrails to the annual appropriations bill as a legislative price for Democrat votes. And again, this is all part of what's factoring to the Senate's political paralysis. Because of the filibuster rule changes, this is going back now to the 1970s, budget reconciliation bills, which bypass the normal 60 vote threshold, they do come with some constraints. Every provision must be directly related to federal revenue, spending, or the debt ceiling, the so-called Byrd rule, okay? ICE and CBP actually fit that test clearly because Congress was expanding their enforcement capacity as a core policy goal, adding billions to hire more agents, build more detention facilities, and fund deportations as a spending increase with a clear fiscal footprint. The Office of Management Budget, the OMB, could easily score the effects such efforts would have on the annual budget, the effects that mass deportations would have on welfare rolls, Social Security benefits, unemployment payments, and the like. By contrast, TSA and the DHS are workforce operations agencies. So their budget is primarily annual salary and staffing costs that get set each year through normal appropriations. And so they have to get renewed every several months. Those are the rules baked into the appropriation bills, okay? Now, no Republican believed for a second that Democrats would be so politically stupid as to block the regular annual appropriations process of the TSA or the DHS. Au contraire, the Republicans were wrong. They were dead wrong. The Democrats literally know no depths when it comes to their absurdities. It turns out the Democrats are that politically stupid, and they did just that. They held the annual renewal of TSA and DHS funds hostage in order to force the Republicans to agree to rein in ICE agents and their deportation efforts. Now, to their credit, Republicans refused. Okay, this wasn't Paul. I mean, I'm not a fan of John Thune, no question, but he's no Paul Ryan in this sense. They were not going to hamstring the president's deportation agenda as a condition for keeping airport security funded. They were never going to capitulate to the Democrats holding TSA funding hostage. And so week after week, the Senate deadlocked. 3 separate funding bills failed to clear the 60-vote threshold needed to advance, with nearly every Democrat voting no. 42 days passed. And what happened? The TSA lines at airports across the country exploded. I mean, the scenes were literally beyond shocking. And it was all the result of 50,000 TSA officers working without pay. Nearly 500 had quit, on top of the 1,100 who resigned during the earlier 2025 shutdown. Absences spiked past 10% nationally. And at some airports, New York, Houston, Atlanta, New Orleans, over 30% of TSA workers just simply didn't show up. Why would they? They're not getting paid. And the result? The longest airport wait times in TSA history, bar none. Some lines exceeded 4.5 hours. Houston's Hobby Airport told passengers to arrive 5 hours before their flights. 5 freaking hours. New Orleans was recommending 3 hours early. Lines were snaking outside terminal buildings. TSA's acting administrator told Congress that agents were, quote, sleeping in their cars at airports to save gas money, selling their blood and plasma, and taking on second and third jobs to make ends meet, all while expected to perform at the highest levels when in uniform to protect the traveling public. And she warned lawmakers that if things got worse, the TSA might have to shut down smaller airports entirely across the country. And keep in mind, this is all happening during spring break, with travel volume running 5% higher than previous years.